Good morning and happy Sabbath. I hope everybody's able to watch us today. We weren't able to be outside because of the rain, but it looks like the sun's shining now, so hopefully it will stay with us and we can have a beautiful afternoon. For those of you who are here this morning, and even for those at home, please let's have some song service together. Let's start with hymn number 518, Standing on the Promises, hymn number 518.
Standing on the promises of Christ my King, through eternal ages let his praises ring. Glory in the highest I will shout and sing, standing on the promises of God. Standing, standing, standing on the promises of God my Savior. Standing, standing, I'm standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises that cannot fail, when the howling storms of doubt and fear assail. By the living word of God we shall prevail, standing on the promises of God. Standing, standing, standing on the promises of God, my Savior. Standing, standing, I'm standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises of Christ the Lord, bound to him eternally by love's strong cord, overcoming daily with the Spirit's sword, standing on the promises of God. Standing, standing, standing on the promises of God, my Savior. Standing, standing, I'm standing on the promises of God.
When we stand on his promises, he makes everything okay. We can get through any storm or anything together with him. And when that happens, everything is well with our soul. So let's sing hymn number 530, It Is Well With My Soul.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrow like sea billows roll, whatever trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul.
Does anybody have a favorite? We can do maybe one more. I don't have three planned, but we can do one. 626. Oh, that's a good one. In a little while, we are going home. I'm ready. I'm ready for us to be back at this church, too. We can all be together. It's not the same. Can you do that one? Rachel can't play that one? Okay. Should we do an acapella? Well, if you give me the note and then come sing it with me, we can do it. Come help me. We're going to try to sing this a cappella because we can't play it. So let's just see maybe the first and last verse. I don't know how this is going to go.
Let us sing a song that will cheer us by the way. In a little while we're going home, for the night will end in the everlasting day. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows' foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. There's a rest beyond, there's relief from every care. In a little while we're going home. And no tears shall fall in that city bright and fair. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows' foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. So good to see you here and here, wherever you are. We just want to welcome you to our worship service today. And we had planned to have a drive-in service, but we didn't want everybody to have to sit with their windshield wipers running, so we decided that we would change it, and those who wanted to could come inside, as our president made a note of yesterday. And those who wish to watch online, that's fine too. We're just so glad to welcome you to this. It's really been hurtful for many of us to not have time when we can come together as the family of God. And I'm thankful for technology, as limited as it is, as faulty as it is, that we can, I can imagine the Apostle Paul trekking out across the desert on a camel, wishing he could sit and talk to a microphone, because it was sure a whole lot easier than what he was doing. But we're glad that you're here in whatever that means to your location, and we hope this is a wonderful day for you. Before we begin, get into the Word, we want to pray together. And That's what worship is all about. And so, just before we have our prayer, I want you, those of you watching online, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there should be a little tab that you can tap and log a prayer request. And those are taken seriously. If there's something on your heart right now that you'd like to share, if you'll just proceed there, don't go away, but you can log in there, you can tap in there and leave a prayer request. And through the week, some of our church leaders will be praying for your need, whatever it is. And there are many right now in our community. One other thing before we pray, and that is this is Memorial Day weekend. And I just want to take this moment to speak a word of tribute and gratitude to our military men and women. Only 2 have died for us in the history of this nation. One is Jesus Christ, and the other is the servicemen and women who have gone to all parts of the world to help make our way of life available and possible for us. And so if you are or were or have someone who is currently, if you're a family member of someone who's in active service today, you're paying a price too. And this country is grateful for what you have done. I love the slogan that you'll see sometimes. It says, all gave some gave all. And we're just grateful. We're thankful for you to help make this country safe and a place that we can live in. Now, some of you here are going to want to kneel, and some of you at home will want to kneel or remain seated or remain in bed or wherever you are. But we want to pray. And I'm going to stand here at the mic, which is a little easier to be heard. And so let's just take a few moments and pray together and make this a very important part of our service. Dear Lord, anytime we come into your presence, we come in a spirit of worship. We come to thank you. We come to praise you for all the gifts that we receive at your hand. We're just so grateful, Lord, that you give us what we need to live on and what we need to live for. And we want to thank you today for the men and women who are giving and have given so much to help make this a free nation. Right now we're pushing the edges of those freedoms. But Lord, they're guaranteed to us by our Constitution and by our God. Freedom to worship is not something we ask as a favor of someone else. They are a gift from your hand. And we're so thankful for that. I don't know where we would turn if we didn't know that our God was in control, and not only in the universe, but in our lives, in our hearts. And so we want to praise you today for all of the ways that you bless us, that you just shower us with good things. We also bring some concerns on our hearts, Lord, and ask that you will draw near and listen. We want to pray, first of all, for those that we love and those in our family and that are close friends that don't walk with you. Lord, speak to their hearts. Today, commission angels to go to their sides and speak to them. Shape circumstances around their lives that will help them to look up and see a God who loves them so much. Even in tough times, we know that you are there. There are some who have indicated on that little tab on the screen a special need. Some of our watchers, some of our viewers who are concerned about an issue. It may be health, it may be job, it may be finances, it may be a relationship. Whatever it is, Lord, you know. And you are the answer. You are our sufficiency. So I just pray, Lord, that you'll show yourself strong in the lives of those who are making requests right now and those for whom they are concerned. We want to ask for forgiveness, Lord. Forgive us of our selfishness. It's so easy in a time of crisis like this to get wrapped up in our own needs, our own survival, our own comfort. But Lord, there are so many today who are hurting because we live in a broken world. Forgive us. We have selfishly looked after our own needs first. And now, Lord, as we turn to your word, we just pray that your Spirit may be here to interpret it to us. You wrote this book for us. Help us, Lord, to understand it and to catch hold of your great heart. We need your presence during these next few minutes. Do for us, Lord, please, and in us what we cannot do for ourselves. We need you right now. We seek your face in Jesus' name. Amen. If you grew up as a youngster in church, maybe in Sunday school or in Sabbath school or wherever it was, you may remember the little song, "Everything's All Right." Do you remember that? Do you ever sing that in Bible class or any time? If we were out in the parking lot, I was going to ask them to flash their lights if they'd ever sung that song, but that won't work in here. But any of you remember that song, "Everything's All Right in My Father's House"? Everything's all right. Remember that? Okay. Well, see, you're as old as I am. That's why. Right, Glenn Coon. That was his favorite song. Everything's all right in my Father's house. There is joy, joy, joy. But I've got a question about that. Because I like to sing it. It's a fun song to sing. There's joy, joy, joy. But I want to ask you a question about that. Because I had trouble with that song. I like to sing it, but I was never really convinced that it was true. Everything's all right in my Father's house. Really? Maybe it's because I grew up in a home where everything wasn't all right. When I was a youngster, my father was bleary-eyed drunk, and our home was not a peaceful place. I remember his buddies would bring him home and just carry him in and throw him on the couch. I remember one time he finally got around to buying a car, and a few months later, the finance company came and repossessed it and took it away. My dad and mother used to fight constantly, and sometimes viciously. In fact, I remember in the kitchen one time, they were just screaming at each other. And my dad got so mad, he slapped my mother across the face. She kicked him and broke his rib. I mean, they were seriously disagreeing, right? Everything's all right in my Father's house. Really? Well, not in my Father's house, and not always was there joy, joy, joy. Is it true? Then it was the song. Were they trying to sell us a bill of goods in this Bible class? Everything's all right in my Father's house. Well, look around. Deaths from the coronavirus in the United States are approaching 100,000 people. Think about that for a minute. That's bigger than many towns in America. Gone. And the most heartrending part of all is that many of those people, a high percentage of those people, died with nobody there to help bring them comfort. Everything's all right in my Father's house. Really? I mean, we see the numbers in the news, and, the 100,000 and 1,216 in this state died since yesterday and all. But listen, it's not just a number. Every one of those numbers has a name. Everything's all right in my Father's house. Really? Late last year, Ruthie and I had the privilege of spending a few days in a pastor's conference, a group of young pastors, and in Oklahoma. And they're just a sweet bunch of young people, men and women. And we studied with them, and it was a kind of a training event, and we just had a wonderful time and fell in love with them. One of the young couples that we met that we just felt like we kind of bonded with was a young couple who seemed maybe a bit sad, not quite as effervescent as you might expect a young pastoral couple to be. And we discovered that they'd been married just over a year, and she was pregnant, and they were so excited. They could feel the movement, and they'd tease about how he's going to be a soccer player. You can tell by the way, they see the outline of his foot on the inside of her tummy, and they were just having a wonderful time as a young, potentially parent couple. And then one day the kicking stopped. They called the doctor, hurried to the hospital, and they lost the baby about 7 months in. Everything's all right in my Father's house. Death, and this would apply to I suspect everybody here and everybody watching, to lose somebody that you love is just a heart-rending time. It's the end of a relationship. We trust them in the hands of God, but there's a vacuum, there's a hole in our lives now. And I want to tell you that it's even worse to have to say goodbye to someone before you've even said hello. And to lose that baby in utero creates a pain that's just inexpressible. Everything's all right in my Father's house. I reflected on that and that song and how enthusiastic my teachers were about helping me learn it, even though it's been a long time ago. I mean, just keep your face toward the sunshine and all the shadows will fall behind you, right? Is everything always all right in our Father's house? This week, our oldest granddaughter who lives in Illinois, is married to a young man who is an ER doc. He's a physician, works in the emergency room at the hospital. There's a group of physicians, and they staff the ER. So he's been just immersed in this coronavirus for the last several months. He began feeling badly. He's in his mid-30s, probably mid to late 30s. He began feeling badly a few days ago, and headache and, the symptoms that we've learned go with the corona. And the thing is, they've got 4 little kids, 9, 7, 5, and 3 or 4. I'm close on those. Our great-grands, the brightest ones in the world, by the way, so I don't even want to get into that discussion with you. But here, they got these 4 little kids. His wife, Brooke, is a nurse, and he is a physician. Well, he got up the next morning, had a bad night, and got up the next morning, and he's smart enough to know what the symptoms are. And he turned to Brooke and he said, "Honey, I think I need to go to the hospital." So they went, and he had the test. In Illinois, because they're a retarded, I shouldn't have said that, because they're behind us. I say they're a retarded state, that's not fair. Anyway, it takes 3 days, takes 72 hours to get the report back. And I said, "Man, you should live in North Carolina. We can get it in 20 minutes. But anyway, let me abbreviate the story a little bit here. He was diagnosed with positive with the coronavirus. So they decided it wasn't serious enough for him to be hospitalized, and they sent him home. Felt better the next day, but that evening he began to get really sick again. So Brooke got him up, got him in the car, and She and he and the 4 kids drove to the hospital. We talked to her by phone after that. She talked about, she had worked at that hospital as a nurse, but she hadn't been there for 10 years. And she said, Grandpa, I can't tell you how hard it was for me when my husband got out of the car, walked in through those steps, up those steps and into the hospital, and I couldn't go with him. Everything's all right in my Father's house. She called and talked to her grandma. Said, Grandma, what am I going to do if I get sick too? What's going to happen to my kids? As Brooke was leaving the parking lot, driving across the parking lot, she saw a nurse walking toward the building, and it was a man, and she recognized him, and she drove up and stopped, rolled down the window, and he recognized her, and so they exchanged pleasantries. They hadn't seen each other for quite a long time, and so she told her story. I've just dropped my husband off here, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be yet with this thing. And the nurse said to her, Brooke, you know, I was a nurse when you were here. I'm director of nurses now in ER. And I want to tell you that he'll get all the loving care we can give him. We're going to do everything we possibly can. We just believe he's going to be coming home soon. So she drove off singing, not our song, but singing, Thank You, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Let me give you the update on that. The hospital test that they give is 6 hours rather than 72. So within a short time, the results came back, and he was negative. We don't know exactly what's going on, but at least it's not the corona. So he's home, he's resting. Ruthie texted Brooke this morning, and maybe we can sing in this case, everything's all right in my Father's house. But that isn't the way it is going in 150 countries around the world. How can you look around? How can you watch the news and say everything's all right in my Father's house? I've asked that question 1,000 times in my life, and you probably have too. But whenever things like this begin to trouble me, and my heart goes out to people who are in trouble, and they're everywhere. There is just so much brokenness in our sinful world. I came across a story. I've read it many times. You have too. But it just, in fact, it's one of the most incredible, one of the most fascinating stories in all the Old Testament. And ends up with a line, with a statement here that will just, your mouth drops open when you read this. If you want to follow, the story is in 2 Kings, back in the Old Testament. There are 3 sets of 2s through there, remember? Let me give you a memory crutch. They're in reverse alphabetical order. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. That's a crutch to help you remember. This is 2 Kings chapter 4. And the story goes like this. Elisha, who was a prophet, now follow the details here because they're important. This is my version of it, but it will follow the story that's recorded there in 2 Kings 4. Elisha is on his way to camp meeting. That's why I said this is kind of my free translation. He's on his way to camp meeting, and he gets as far as the little town of Shunem. And he is walking down the main street, and he meets a couple. And the Bible doesn't tell us much about the man. It says the woman is a prominent woman. It doesn't say much about the man. It doesn't give us the name of either one. But they get to talking, and come to find out they share a lot of common beliefs. And so the outcome of that little discussion there on the street is that they invite him home to dinner. and they discover he's a prophet, and they're so excited. They've got a man of God here in their house, and they're just having a wonderful meal. And she says to him, we want to thank you for taking the time to come and eat with us. You've just done us such a favor to come and share bread with us. And in fact, we'd like to do you a favor. You've done us one. We have a loft in our house, kind of an attic space, and we'd like to convert that into a private room for you. So whenever you're traveling in this area and you can get close enough, you know that you've got your own private motel room upstairs. It's yours anytime. Stairs are on the outside of the house anyway. You can come and go as you please. We've got a bed and a basin and a lamp, and we just want to, that's your place. That we had a, I guess I can tell this, we had a celebrity come and stay in our home. John Ashcroft was the former Attorney General. And he and his wife they're friends, and they came and stayed with us one night. We call that the Ashcroft Suite now. And this was the Elisha Suite on the top floor of this family in Shunem. Elisha was so impressed that they would do this nice gesture for him that he said to them, look, you folks have done me a favor. Let me do you a favor. What can I do? What favor can I give you? And Gehazi, who is Elisha's assistant, travels with him, leans over and says, Elisha, they're an aging couple and they don't have any kids. And so Elisha brashly says to this older couple, a year from now, you'll have a baby. She is so stunned. She doesn't even thank him. At least the record doesn't have any record. She says thank you or wow, or there's no record of her response. But she gets this announcement that a year from now she will hold a baby in her arms, a baby boy. Well, Elisha leaves, and to everyone's surprise, a year later, she's holding a little baby boy in her arms. Delight of her life, apple of her eye. Nothing has ever made her happier in life since the day she got married. She's carrying a child of her own. Now, they're farmers, and one day the boy, he's about 10, and we don't know that, but I'm assuming that because of the way the story unfolds, and it's harvest season. So it's probably August maybe, and Dad goes out to the field to do some farming, to do some harvesting, it says, and the boy follows him to help him. That's why I think he's not 3 years old anymore. I think he's probably older than that. So I've pegged him at 10 just to make the story fit. And he's out there helping them. I don't know, they're raking, if they're hauling stuff. He doesn't have a big tractor sitting there that's doing all the thrashing. It's all done by hard work. And it was really a hot day, and there are no shade trees in a wheat field generally. And he begins to not feel good, and he has a headache. And pretty soon he says, Dad, I don't feel good at all. And he faints, probably a heat stroke, sunstroke, I'm not sure. But one of the hired men picks him up and carries him back to the farmhouse. And his mother sees them coming, and she rushes out to meet him. And the servant brings the boy in, and Mom sits down, and the boy sits on her lap, and she wipes his face with a cool cloth. She fans him, she blows on him, she does everything, she prays, she does everything she can do but he dies. Mid-afternoon, he dies on her lap, in her arms. Everything's all right in my Father's house. She takes him upstairs. Interesting. She takes him upstairs and puts him on Elisha's bed in this new loft they've built up there. She saddles her horse, jumps on the horse, and rides off for where she expects Elisha probably is. And when Elisha sees her coming, and this is the part of the story that gets absolutely amazing. Elisha sees, I don't know what he recognized. Saddle blanket, how could he? She's still a long ways away and creating quite a cloud of dust behind the horse as she heads for where he's staying on Mount Carmel. And so he says to Gehazi, would you go, here comes the lady from Shunem, where I have the room there, you know. Go find out what's going on with her. She looks like she's in a desperate rush. And so Gehazi goes out to intercept her. And when he gets close, he's been told by Elisha the questions to ask. And here they are. Gehazi says, is everything all right with you? Is everything all right with your husband? Is everything all right with your child? And here's this is one of the most amazing statements in all of the Old Testament story. Her answer is, it's in verse 26 if you're following in the text. Yes, everything is all right. What? Her boy, the apple of her eye, the most precious thing in her life, her treasure, this child of promise, lies dead back home, and she says, everything's all right. Where does a statement like that come from? From trust. Now the boy will be returned to her. Elisha will be instrumental in a miracle that restores life to the lad, but she doesn't know that yet. That tells me that as she galloped toward Mount Carmel late that afternoon, she was singing our song. Everything's all right in my Father's house. Living in a broken world is often pain-filled. But we know joy comes in the morning. Meanwhile, we trust and pray and sing. Everything's all right in my Father's house. We sing that song. Not because we know how the story ends, not because we know how every chapter finishes, but because we trust him. Some of you know Israel and Sherry Rogers. He's part of the X-ray staff at our hospital in Hiawassee. About 12 or 13 years ago, his wife, Sherry, was diagnosed with a cancer in her brain behind one eye. They did a major surgery, removed one eye, and she got along fine for 10 years. 2 years ago, she began to have some headaches again, so they did another checkup, found a recurrence of the tumor. They went in, opened the skull again, took out the new tumor, and discovered that it had spread. The last year or so has been a very painful time for them. We love them like our own kids. We stayed close. We have a morning prayer call every day for an hour, people all over the country, and Sherry often joins us on that prayer call. We prayed for her. Things are not going well. She went for some very specialized training, procedure. Felt like there was improvement for a little while, but this week has not been a good week. They're supposed to go back Monday. I don't know if she's going to be able to travel. But yesterday, we stopped by the hospital where Israel works. And he came out and to talk to Ruthie. And they were standing there by you can't get in the front door of the hospital anymore. We went around to the back, and he came out there on the entry ramp, and I rolled down the window. Ruthie was up on the ramp talking to him. And I said, Israel, how you doing? He said, I'm okay. See, that only comes from a journey of trust. Everything's all right. In my father, there's a big billboard along the highway near our home, about five minutes from our house. And it's by a car company. And it says, God's got this. That's a hard promise to believe unless you trust him. Joy comes in the morning. Yeah. Meanwhile, we trust. There's a caveat that I want to add here for just a moment, and it's this. How we respond in difficult times is part of our testimony. When our way is turbulent and others see our trust, it helps them hope too. When we suffer loss, health, a job, a relationship, a promotion, whatever, and we can still sing our song, it helps make them strong. It helps give them courage. It helps them say, whatever they've got, I want some of it. And they can learn to sing. Everything's all right. I want to stay on this theme, and I want to change the setting for just a minute. Jesus encountered a man who was blind from birth. Blind from birth. Think about that. If you're 30 and you lose your vision, you still know what an apple looks like. You still know what you do with a pencil. You still know what a piano looks like. But when you're blind from birth, you don't have those images on your memory. So the only thing you can do is imagine blind from birth. They didn't have the accommodation for any of the handicaps that we know about in the day of Jesus. And this man had been blind. He had never seen a thing, never seen his family's face, never. That would be a cross to bear. The disciples, seeking ever to be helpful, said, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? You know that story. You know it well. And Jesus said, and listen, this is a key here for us. Neither. This happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. Wow. Do you see the significance of the part this man was asked to play? Jesus said, we needed to have a blind man here so that my power could be demonstrated and people would know who I am. So this man has been blind all his life, so the power of God can be manifest in his journey. I want you to look ahead just a bit to the day when Jesus and that previously blind man meet again. And Jesus said to him, listen, Jesus says to him, thank you. Blind man says, no, I need to thank you. You not only gave me my sight back, but you invited me here to this place, to the new earth, to spend eternity with you. But Jesus said, yeah, but look, I needed you to play a part. I needed you to play this specific part. Jesus says, I know it was tough. I went through tough times too. Because I knew that's the way God wanted to use us to accomplish his purpose and get this mess over with, so it can be, again, a place where God can look and say, oh, that's very good. So Jesus can say to the blind man, I'm sorry, and I want to thank you for what you did. I can imagine Jesus speaking to someone he's healed, or someone who's lost a son, or someone who had some other catastrophe in his life, and that includes most of us. And he says, I saw when you went to bed that night and cried yourself to sleep. And I'm so sorry. So sorry you had to go through that. I did too. And besides that, I saw your tears. You thought it was raining that night? No. That was my tears on your roof. Everything's all right in my Father's house. We know how the story began. We know how the story ends. But more important, we know the author. God's got this. And so we can sing on our journey. Everything's all right in my Father's house. God's crazy about you. We're going to put a phone number on the screen right now for those of you that are home. God's crazy about you. If you have trouble believing that, I want you to call that number. Leave just your first name, and we'll get back to you and talk to you about that, because that's the most important thing you can know. God's crazy about you. He did not count heaven a place to be desired while you were lost. He didn't even want to be there unless you and I were there with him. What a God. No wonder we can sing, everything's all right in my Father's house. We can sing that because we trust him. Lord, I just want to thank you today for the precious stories that are included here in your word. We learn so much about you when we read them. We're not looking just for information. We don't care about what was the population of Shunem. We don't care about that. All we care about is the assurance that we're important to you, that we're valuable to you, that you've got this, that whatever our hurt, we can know there's a day coming when we can sit down with you and you'll connect the dots and show us why this happened and how you used this event and how you wanted to do this, so you prepared us for it, and it took, you know about all the anguish, the disappointment, the pain, because your son lived right in the middle of it. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for that assurance. We look forward to the day when you will fit the missing pieces together. Meanwhile, we sing. Meanwhile, we sing. Everything's all right in our Father's house. Amen.
We're going to sing our closing hymn now, number 529. Hymn number 529, Under His Wings.
Under his wings I am safely abiding, though the night deepens and tempests are wild. Still I can trust him, I know he will keep me. He has redeemed me, and I am his child. Under his wings, under his wings, who from his love can sever? Under his wings, my soul shall abide, safely abide forever. Under his wings, what a refuge in sorrow, how the heart yearningly turns to its rest. Often when earth has no balm for my healing, there I find comfort, and there I am blessed. Under his wings, under his wings, who from his love can sever? Under his wings, my soul shall abide, safely abide forever. Under his wings, oh, what precious enjoyment! There will I hide till life's trials are o'er. Sheltered, protected, no evil can harm me. Resting in Jesus, I'm safe evermore. Under his wings, under his wings, who from his love can sever? Under his wings, my soul shall abide, safely abide forever.
We hope to see you again next week. God bless.